by film.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by announce.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
All aboard!
And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Turn to page 394.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountain?
That is so fetch.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dive.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Where's my super suit?
Hey, fat lard, come get some dinner.
Well,
I am not drinking any f***ing Merlot.
And I'm gonna try to forget the fact that you're a girl.
But dogs can look up.
Oh, durka.
you tell me what my suit is, woman! This is the Polar Express!
All right. Well, welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of 20 Years for Beers. We are a podcast dedicated to rewatching movies from at least 2 decades ago, while simultaneously enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. My name is Steve, and this is my big brother, Tim, and we are coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. In this, I'm in the wrong notes. All right, so we have just watched and recorded our episode on Pulp Fiction, and as usual, we sit down and discuss another film over another beer, so we refer to these as our happy hour episodes.
Hey, you guys. Happy hour is from 4 to 6.
On this happy hour, we will be talking about another 1994 film, the Best Picture winner of that year, in Forrest Gump. Gump, as it were.
Gump.
Unless you are just coming out of the cave you've lived in for 30 years, you know this film. But I guess just in case, the film follows a simple yet lovable young man from his childhood in the 50s up until the late 80s as he is telling strangers on a bus bench about his life. Forrest finds his way out of Alabama and into all kinds of famous events over the last half of the 20th century, but what he really wants is for the love of his life, Jenny, to find her way back home to him. The film is directed by Robert Zemeckis, written by Eric Roth, and stars Tom Hanks, Gary Sinise, Robin Wright, McKelty Williamson, and Sally Field.
What's your sole purpose in this army?
To do whatever you tell me, drill sergeant.
God damn it, Gump! You're a goddamn genius. That's the most outstanding answer I've ever heard. You must have a goddamn IQ of 160. You are goddamn gifted, Private Gump. Listen up, people.
Now, for some reason, I fit in the army like one of them round pegs. It's not really hard. You just make your bed real neat and remember to stand up straight and always answer every question with, "Yes, drill sergeant."
Is that clear?
Yes, drill sergeant!
What you do is you just drag your nets along the bottom. On a good day, you can catch over 100 pounds of shrimp. Everything goes all right. 2 men, shrimp in 10 hours, less what you spend on gas. You can...
Done, drill sergeant?
Good! Why did you put that weapon together so quickly, Gump?
You told me to, drill sergeant.
Jesus H. Christ. This is a new company record. If it wouldn't be a waste of such a damn fine enlisted men, I'd recommend you for OCS, Private Gump. You are going to be a general someday, Gump. Now, disassemble your weapon and continue.
Anyway, like I was saying, shrimp is the fruit of the sea. You can barbecue it, boil it, broil it, bake it, saute it. There's shrimp kebabs, shrimp creole, shrimp gumbo, pan-fried, deep-fried, stir-fried. There's pineapple shrimp, lemon shrimp, coconut shrimp, pepper shrimp.
Shrimp soup, shrimp stew, shrimp salad, shrimp and potatoes, shrimp burger, shrimp sandwich. That's about it.
Come on, not my beer.
With our reactions and verdicts to the movie out of the way, we move on to the reactions to our beers that we drank while rewatching our subject movie.
And if you want to have sex with a disgusting bad brewer with
a terrible attitude.
This is where we take a look back at our beers and give our expert ratings for our drinking buddies.
Ugh, whatever. Hey, here's the truth.
This is Drinking Buddies.
Let's get weird.
So we're recording this in the nice heat of the summer. And so my drinking buddies for the movie were Summit's Twins Pills.
Okay.
Like their Pilsner they have, I guess, maybe in partnership or recognition of our Twins team.
Yep.
And it's a nice summer drinking beer. 3.5 out of 5 for me.
Yep.
It's hard to kind of mess up a lager, but it's hard to kind of stand out.
Yeah.
So it's solid. It's a nice one. It's nice to have in the fridge when you're done drinking or mowing the lawn.
Yep.
Or watching a movie. And then I also had a similar option, because again, the heat. New Glarus's Kid Kolsch.
Oh. Okay.
Which I find Kolsch's to be like lager-ish type of, like they're kind of variations. This one's got a really good flavor to it. So if you're out in Wisconsin and you want to have a great option, alternative to the Spotted Cows, that's about 4, I'd say, out of 5.
Okay.
It's really, really, really delicious.
Nice.
What'd you have?
So out of Brixworth Brewing Company in Minneapolis, or Burnsville, I guess. I was at the Minneapolis location.
Sure.
But
one of the options. Yeah.
They're Star 6-9, the New England Hazy IPA. Brixworth's really good. I like their beers.
Yeah.
So I had a 4 out of 5, like a nice, really delicious as usual, kind of a hazy IPA.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of LTD Brewing Company in Hopkins, Minnesota, their Lime Patio Crusher. It's a blonde. Their patio crushers are blonde ale, and then they throw just
something in
a
it.
bunch of lime. Really easy drinking and delicious, kind of like the pills and that kind of stuff. It's a solid blonde, but I don't like the blonde on its own.
Correct.
But like they do an orange peel one and a lime one. So I really like. I liked it. I have 3.75 out of 5.
And then tonight, in honor and recognition again of the heat of the summer,
totally,
we feel like it's an appropriate option for this. And if anything, one of the best things of the Surly Law changing everything to be as it is now is our friends at Fulton out of Minneapolis. Oh, I tell you, when you texted me yesterday, I was like almost weeping with excitement.
I was like, guess what I found?
It's their War and Peace, which is their Imperial Coffee Stout, which I think has been probably pre-pandemic since we've seen it.
Yeah. Yep.
Had to have been. I mean, at least 5-6 years.
Yeah, and maybe they've had it in the tap room.
Sure.
We don't go down there because it's tap room only. But still, yeah.
It's like 4.5, maybe 4.75 in terms of just this incredible option having been. Maybe it's a recency bias because you're so excited, but it stands out as a fantastic.
Yeah, it's 4.75. It's for me. It's
so good.
Yeah, it's one of the best coffee stouts out there. I really wish they would do it in the winter at least. But they just don't. They can't. They don't have the capacity there. So yeah, Fulton out of Minneapolis. It's outstanding. Love it.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
This is a social network.
You don't have to be an intellectual property expert to understand the difference between right and wrong.
Where we take a look back at the critical and fan reception from 2 decades ago.
Mark!
As usual, Tim takes point on this, so take it away, Tim.
You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything.
$1 billion.
IMDb rating is 8.8 out of 10.
Yep.
So very, very high. Stanley Coffin. Actually, sorry, really quick. What I wanted to do is when we think about these legacy movies that we're going back in time for, kind of like skipping our usual 20 parameters, I kind of want to start with a few that were like, they did not quite see the classic that it is, and then we'll talk through a few that were really good.
Sure.
So Stanley Kaufman of the New Republic said for Forrest Gump, I can't see how people with low IQs or those who love them in any way are comforted by all this hogwash. I can easily see how such people might be offended by the movie's smug unreality. David Anson of Newsweek magazine said, for all its ambition, Forrest Gump ends up using great historical events in the service of a dubious sentimentality. So again, not everybody's swinging 100% when they're watching movies and being movie critics. Thanks for nothing, those guys. However, two that stood out were Michael Medved of the New York Post. Despite how terrible they are in most ways, good review. Hank's performance is a triumph of dignity, decency, and warm-hearted humor. Even more than his Oscar-winning achievement in Philadelphia, this is a role that will be remembered as long as people care about great acting.
Wow.
Roger Ebert had the vision to see 4 out of 4.
Yeah, I think,
and said the film is not a heartwarming story about a mentally challenged man. That cubbyhole is much too small and limiting for Forrest Gump.
Yep.
The movie is more a meditation on our times, as seen through the eyes of a man who lacks cynicism and takes things for exactly what they are. To play that man, I can't think of anyone else as Gump, after seeing how Hanks makes him into a person so dignified, so straight ahead. The performance is a breathtaking balancing act between comedy and sadness, and a story rich in big laughs and quiet truths. Good job, Raj. That's a great one. Academy Awards that year, up for 13 nominations. I actually kind of forgot it was up for that many.
Mm-hmm.
It had 7. The ones that were just nominations were score, makeup, sound effects editing, sound, set direction, cinematography, and supporting actor for Gary Sinise.
Mm-hmm.
And the 6 wins that it had that year were for best visual effects, adapted screenplay, director, actor, picture, and I have listed 5. I don't know. I will come back to the 6th. And editing. There we go. Through the wonders of editing, no pun intended.
Hey.
That's the 6th one. So raked up at the Oscars that year.
No kidding. We begin our discussion with our reaction segment that we call Spotlight.
This is Boston, and the church does not want them to be found. So, they are not there.
This is where we highlight and discuss our top takeaways of any kind from rewatching our subject film.
We've got 2 stories here. We've got a story about degenerate clergy, and we've got a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry.
If there were 90 of these bastards, people would know. Maybe they do.
This is Spotlight.
They knew, and they let it happen.
You remember seeing this, right?
Yeah, in the theater and stuff.
Like,
yeah.
It's one of those, and you obviously remember more than...
Yeah, EP West.
I love that. I was like, that should be a quiz show edition where it's like, where were we? Yeah. But I have like vivid memories of seeing this.
Sure.
Because it felt like it was the first adult type movie in the theater that wasn't like, because I think I saw Speed. I mean, like not an R-rated, but in terms of, this is what a high caliber quality film can be like. We'd watched some at home, like Bridge on the River Kwai. I mean, Dad showed us a bunch, like, but I do remember seeing this in the theater, be like, this is a difference in kind in terms of a story that's being told. And watching it again, and I must admit, I probably haven't seen it in 10, 15 years, maybe more. It's absolutely a no-brainer that this won Best Picture. And I think the quality films that year, and I adore Shawshank. So it's not to say it was better or worse, but I can see this was a destined Best Picture winner. And so kudos to everybody that was involved and how it but I still remember seeing it being blown away by the, a year after Jurassic Park, the digital and practical effects coming in of this regular dude. I mean, we laugh at it now with like deep fakes and how it's, so prevalent. But at the time, 94 watching, being like, holy cow, how did they blend all this historical footage into this seamlessly? And for the most part, it still holds up.
Yeah. Maybe not the visuals. Some of the visuals don't, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But
Like the John Lennon, not so much, but whatever. Yeah. I just still have memories of this felt like I say adult film because it's a different connotation, but a movie made for adults could really hit in a different way than we had watched growing up.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember seeing the theater. I do have that sort of, and I was only 11, but it was one of those like family, we could all go to it kind of experiences.
Yes.
And I remember loving it then, because everyone did. Like it was like the 5th highest grossing movie of all time or whatever at the time.
Sure.
And I just remember thinking like, oh, this is, because I was too young. I hadn't seen Shawshank or Quiz Show.
Sure.
Or obviously Pulp Fiction. So that I was super excited. Like at the time, I thought it was obviously the best movie of the year. And I get why it won Best Picture. I wouldn't pick it like we talked about in our top 5, but it's definitely a good, like a placeholder or a good, like, if you're going to ask about the films in 94 and Gump is the Best Picture winner, like it's a you know, it's a good bellwether. It's a good like whatever. Like, oh, that if that's the year we're talking, like, and that's the best movie, I totally agree.
It's not undeserving. We have countless examples where like that one.
No.
And this one, you're like, yeah, I can see that it was a great option for it.
Yep.
Do we talk about Tom Hanks now or
sure.
end?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
It's one of those things of so when you think of back-to-back winning performances.
Yep.
And now that I'm talking about it, man, I should have done some more quiz show on that, but whatever. Philadelphia into Forrest Gump in terms of a career shift for an actor.
Yeah.
That prior to that was really known for like, not say slapstick, but you think of Big, Turner and Hooch, Money Pit, like all these things that, and his TV show before, The Bosom Buddies, like in terms of the caliber of a performance relative to the career before, it kind of has, not to say like modern equivalent, not the same way, but like it'd be like if Chris Pratt came out of nowhere and did something like Philadelphia. You were like, how is this guy this good?
Yeah.
But Philadelphia and Forrest Gump is just a great run, say nothing of Apollo 13 the year after. And I definitely, watching it again, don't know that I appreciated when I first watched it, the nuance, because it seems like it's maybe a caricature of the Gump performance of like the Southern boy and like how his phrases and sayings, and you go, oh, okay. But the nuance that comes with, and the challenge I think Hanks had to, and I think some of the reviews talked about it, being really respectful to the character. And not having it feel like almost in some ways like a DiCaprio and Gilbert Grape, which is still a great performance, but seems like that was a bit more, I don't know. It's a difference in kind in my book, but just Hanks in general, we love him. We wax poetic. He's so great. But this was like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be a huge, like mega talent.
This is otherworldly. Like he won for Philadelphia the year prior, and you're like, oh, okay, this was his dramatic sort of. I mean, he had done some things, and he had been nominated for Big as an actor anyway, but different.
It's good.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
But this was the like next. This was the upper stratosphere of that skyrocketing of fame.
Yes.
Like second Oscar in a row, biggest movie of the year, highest grossing movie of the year. You know, it's number 11 on IMDb's like top 250.
Oh, sure.
You know, and yeah, so it's like it was, but then the performance is great.
Yeah.
Like it'd be one thing if we look at it and he won and you look back and it was like really, it didn't hold up because of whether it be autism or whatever he ends up having, like whatever, the undiagnosed, the special needs that he has.
Yes.
Because at the time it could have been a caricature, like he could have really been an offensive performance.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He just played it. And then I saw an interview that he was talking about where the voice came from. And the kid who played him.
Oh, the younger boy.
The younger boy who played him. He talked like that. That was his normal voice at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so like,
I always thought it was like an actor thing.
No. And so then he ended up just mimicking him as an adult. He basically just said like, I think they hammed it up a little bit with the kid, but he kind of talked like that. And so he just basically just copied the kid's voice. Like that's what it was. I want to talk about, piggybacking off of that, I want to talk about Sinise as well.
Sure.
I had Hanks and Sinise as my like sort of performances to talk about. No idea who this person was. And, you know, I mean, we had no context at the time anyway, and we're, you know, only 11 and 13 or whatever, 15. How old are you?
I was 14.
14. No idea who this person was, no understanding, you know, and he is so flippin' good as Lieutenant Dan. He's just like, I didn't look who won the Oscar that year in 94 for supporting actor. Because I know Samuel L. Jackson was up for Pulp Fiction, and then Sinise was up. And so I'm just kind of curious, and Tim's looking it up while we're talking about this. But boy, it's a solid performance from him. And he like his transition, because Gump is Gump the whole way through. Like he's like, that performance is great, but it's the same throughout the whole thing. Yes, he grows a little and he gets more intelligent and things like that. But Lieutenant Dan's like arc is so good, and he's so good at it. Did you find it?
I believe it's Martin Landau for Ed Wood.
Oh, yeah. It was. Yep, because that's why.
Yep.
Now, I do think if I'm going to pick a supporting performance, it would have been Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, if I were going to pick one. But yeah, he is so good. The arc that he has. Another thing I noticed, and this is probably goes to the writing more than anything, but I didn't realize he calls him Gump. Right? He calls him Gump.
Yep.
But then when he makes his peace with God on the boat, he calls him Forrest, and he only calls him Forrest from then on out. He doesn't call him, like, up until then, he's always Gump, as his, like, I'm your lieutenant, like, you're my subordinate or whatever, you're my private. And at that point, I guess they're friends, like, they're equals then at that point. And he only calls him Forrest a couple times because he's, once the his mom gets sick and he jumps off, you don't see Dan until the wedding later.
Sure.
But he calls him Forrest the time that he has that. And
that's a great call out. Never noticed that.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, what?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that had to be, but his performance is really good with it too. Like that acceptance piece in that moment of after the hurricane is really powerful. And I thought Sinise acts. I mean, neither one, like, to me, it's 1A and 1B. Like, they're both really great performances. It's just that Hanks ended up winning the Oscar, and he's also Tom freaking Hanks. So
true, but I do think there's some element watching again where, we've said before in podcasts, like, what does or doesn't work for some movies. Gump is a innocent proxy, if you will, for America or people at the time going through all these tumultuous changes over those decades. And it works because you have two people close in his life, Jenny and Lieutenant Dan, who are caught up in those experiences. Gump is kind of involved, but he's buffered from it because of his nature. But Dan is grappling with the reality of, I'm meant to die based upon my legacy.
Yeah.
And you stole that from me.
He was planning on dying. You assume he just
this
was
is what's going to
planning on
happen.
dying.
And I won't have to worry about it. And so I love his story arc with grappling with, in the midst of, what do I do with that now?
Yeah.
Where I've had my legacy stolen. That's his perspective, at least, by somebody who is so endearing and innocent and really, really caring. It's just another great performance tacked on for the entire movie. But I agree, Sinise is great. And what a note I had was still pretty incredible, thinking through how they were able to accomplish his legs being gone.
Yeah.
When you think of the time and the practical, and it is flawless in my book. Some of the stuff, like when he's spinning around or the legs on the table, when he jumps off the boat and the stuff, you're like, his legs would be hitting that. So how they accomplished it, again, to the mechas and the visual effects, it's really, really great. Because it wouldn't work in the way that if it felt unearned with those type of character stories, but the technical aspects, if it's not going to work, it's just not going to, it would just undermine the integrity of the story. So I agree. Like, Sinise is fantastic.
Okay. Your next point.
So, talking through Hanks and Gump and then Lieutenant Dan, Sinise, the third one, clearly the story, is Jenny. And my question is Jenny a good person caught up in horrible situations, or just a horrible person in how she treats Gump?
She's a good person caught up in horrible situations. I mean, I think they do that on purpose. They talk about her upbringing in childhood, and they show her going through these, I think she is a good person, but she does treat him poorly, or she does definitely now to be fair, she doesn't drag him on as ever thinking, no, well, maybe down the road we'll get together, or maybe this, like, she's just doesn't have, I think she loves Forrest, and I think they're friends, obviously, growing up and things like that. And if not best friends or whatever. Yeah. But I just don't think I think she's just a circumstantial asshole to a certain extent. Yeah. Yeah. She's definitely not nice to him. I mean, she's not mean to him. She's just indifferent towards him a lot of times, I feel like.
And that's what I love. So,
although she did break the law and run through the Washington, like the Monument Pool. Like, so, I mean, like, she obviously loved him.
And I ask that because, when I think of the review talking about it's an oversimplistic assessment for this thing, I think Jenny as a character is far more compelling watching it now than when I watched it growing up.
Yeah.
In terms of the abuse that she had at the hands of her father and the trauma from that. And just, kudos to, maybe we'll talk about Eli Roth's writing, like the subtext.
Yeah.
It's not stated there's abuse happening and that you're traumatized forever, but like the residual impact of that being, attachment, unable to love in the same way. And I agree, indifference seems to be a great assessment for she's not purposely cruel. It's just she doesn't have that affection because she's in this tumultuous time of her own life.
Yeah.
Trying to grapple with the world changing as it was. And kudos to Robin Wright for, in some ways, it could be a very thankless performance.
Yeah.
Because you're just, this unrequited love interest of the main protagonist. But I still love when he's like, you're my girl. Like, why would I? Like, that's a dumb question. Of course, I'm always so good to you because you're my girl. But I think it pays off because of the grave scene.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't work. And again, if it's like heartless in so many ways or brutal, you can feel that she is figuring out her own shit. And then having a kid changes everything. And that's the difference in kind for me with that. I think I really appreciate her performance in the story where it's earned at the end when she dies.
Yeah.
And it's, clearly AIDS that they're grappling with.
Yeah.
But again, to Hank's performance, you have to be a heartless person to watch it and not tear up at the end. In terms of him talking about like how great Forrest is. So I think the three of them are so great, and kudos to Hank's. It's somewhat, I don't know, I didn't look at the other performances. Somewhat of an unfortunate thing that she wasn't nominated, but I can kind of see it.
Money thinking that neither her or Sally Field were nominated.
Yeah. Like, you think both of those performances would be up. But, again, that's the Oscar, hashtag Oscar so male or whatever it is. Like, a little bit different, but it happens. So I just wanted to talk like those three stand out in terms of the differences. And I love that everything is earned with the story arc.
Yeah.
I don't think it was ever forced. I mean, it kind of makes sense, some of the things happening around these different crazy times, but everything felt like when they were able to reconnect in the ways they were, it was an organic reconnection, not for the sake of like a narrative thing.
Yeah. And speaking of that reconnect, is that going back to Hanks's performance and you crying at the grave, like when he finds out that,
oh God,
he's the father or whatever. And he has that scene.
You're a mama, Jenny.
I'm a mama. His name's Forrest.
Like me.
I named him after his daddy.
He got a daddy named Forrest, too?
You're his daddy, Forrest. Forrest, look at me. Look at me, Forrest. There's nothing you need to do, okay? You didn't do anything wrong. Okay? Isn't he beautiful?
He's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But is he smart?
He's very smart. He's one of the smartest in his class.
Yeah, it's that moment of when that acting, like to me, where he retreats back.
Yep.
Like and right at the beginning when she says like, oh, his name's Forrest, and like a light bulb goes off in his eyes.
Yep.
It's like, oh, his name's Forrest, and then the dad, and he's a little bit confused, and then he gets like hit over the head with a sledgehammer on that he's the dad, and then you're just like, and you watch that whole performance is outstanding. So I cry every time on that one.
Absolutely. That's like the first moment where it feels like a sucker punch, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Because it shows the first glimpse of the respect the movie has for the character.
Yeah.
Because it could have been a character of him not being aware enough, but his whole story is like, I know who I am in this world. I know the world thinks I'm dumb. And it's he doesn't have a concern about it until it's potential that he feels it might have been passed on.
Yep.
And his performance stepping back and just being like, oh my God, like I might have had a bigger impact in maybe a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think it is such a next level performance to then couple, yes, with the grapes. It's once it moves from narration of a like history to moving forward exclusively, that's when I feel like it just becomes a next level film, because it isn't told then through this prism of like, oh, here's this fun thing or what's happening, and it's well done. It's when it becomes a father story again.
Right.
No shock. A movie that I haven't watched since having kids is even more amazing when I watch it now, and it's centered around the parental aspect is just a knockout for me. It's great. But yeah, that scene is really, really good.
Yeah. Kind of speaking like of iconic moments, I do forget that this film has really iconic moments in it, from the Run Forrest Run piece at the beginning where he like the braces fall off.
Yes.
To the Washington Mall pool scene, or when she's running out there. Like Bubba dying on the spoiler. Bubba dying on the edge of that river.
Yes.
The boat running, like when he jumps off the boat and runs into the dock.
Yes.
I mean, you can start listing things, and if you were to show just a casual moviegoer a screenshot from it, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's Forrest Gump. Oh, that's Forrest Gump."
Yeah.
Like,
Box
right?
chocolate,
Anything on the bench, then the quotes, and like it is. Yeah, it is such an iconic film that I actually think it, and I think I've talked about it in the past. That it's actually an example of a film that is so popular and so a part of the pop culture that time sort of for a while made it seem like it wasn't deserving of the accolades. Like it was overrated somehow.
Yep.
Because it was parodied and it was made fun of or copied or the used in whatever film or like on TV, and the music was used everywhere. And and I think about it with like Braveheart as an example of that, although Apollo 13 still should have won that year. And Titanic for sure is another one that just they became so parodied, especially. So I guess I just mentioned 3 90s films, but it's so good, and these iconic moments are just there.
Yeah,
and the running across the desert, it's just I love it. I think it's a great movie. Yep.
And one thing I'll add is mentioning before the narrative arc and how they kind of have him voicing over these things. Definitely did not appreciate watching before.
Yep.
The juxtaposition of what he's narrating is incredibly sanitized for the people on the bench.
Oh, right.
Like the words being chosen are just like this high level, and it's not, I think, through any kind of like misdirection or on purpose. It's just how he sees these things.
Yeah.
But putting that against the reality of what's happening on screen was so much more impactful, because like, especially when he's like, that's all I got to say about that, when these are really intense things. But I love that. And kudos to Eli Roth, the screenwriter, where the narration is it'd be hard to, if you're just some random person on the bench hearing these horrible things happen. It'd be really, you're like, I got to catch my bus. It'd be really tough.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it's a great balance between the story that he's telling is high level, sanitized, but again, from the tumultuous nature of the world at the time, it's coming across to the viewer and seeing it's much more impactful and difficult and challenging. That is a lesser film would have maybe done more with that.
Yep.
So I think it's a great balance between those.
Yep. Any more?
I got one more point.
Go ahead.
I do remember the Killer soundtrack.
Yes.
When we've talked about Dazed and Confused and others.
Yep.
It's really, really, I think actually when I bought it, when it came out, it was like one of the first things, like a 2 CD set. Wow. But it was.
Because one was the score and one was the
No, they only had a clip of Silvestri's score, like the theme. It was,
that's right.
It was literally
yeah.
2
That's right.
discs.
It was just
of all the different songs they had, and going from the 50s through the 80s, and all the classics that they've included.
And I like it too because they, for the most part, the songs that they pick are from the era they're in.
Yeah,
like there's a couple of exceptions of not that, but so you don't have to have a date underneath. You can kind of just
Yes, you get the vibe. And
you
the
get
feeling.
these context clues.
You know that. The only caveat or maybe critique I have on it, somewhat of a quibble, is I do love the soundtrack, but at times I did find it like a bit too on the nose. Like when Jenny's walking out the door.
Yeah.
And the song's lyrics are like, as you see her walking the door, or like, I'm going to go to San Francisco with flowers in your hair.
Are you going to San Francisco?
And like Born to Run when Forrest is, wait for it, running. It's like one of those things of, okay, did the story tie in anyway to the songs, or like the song will fit for that? Whatever. It all works out, but it's really an amazing collection of songs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have the soundtrack on my list too, but not only that, but also the score is outstanding.
Yeah. It's
from
really
Silvestri.
good.
Like, it's a simple score. Like I mean, sorry, I should say it's sparse. Like it's kind of the same theme throughout, but that theme is so freaking good.
Yeah.
Like that it was used in movie trailers for so long, like it just was, and it's totally recognizable. Like, yeah, I love the score. I love the soundtrack. It's awesome. The one other thing I want to mention, I really appreciate Robert Zemeckis in like he tries. He doesn't always succeed.
Sure.
In terms of his filmography after Castaway.
There's a bit of a diminishing returns.
The Man on Wire or whatever one that was pretty solid with Gordon Levitt. But Flight was fine. Like, but everything he does, and he's got a new one coming out later this year with Hanks and Robin Wright. I'm blanking on the name right now.
But like when he did like Beowulf, and then even, like Christmas Carol,
and then Polar Express is I love Polar Express, but
I just think it was one of those things of, not to compare it to George Lucas as far as going too far out of it, but it was like the motion capture stuff was like, okay, some can be effective.
Yeah.
The digital things can serve the story, but it felt like everything was done to serve the digital. And that's where I feel like it's a bit of a miss.
He does, like, he tries. I mean, he gave it a shot.
Yeah.
He tried
I agree.
to do that. Or the movie's called Here, by the way. And it's so...
Like, location or sound?
H-E-R-E. And it's so it's Hanks and Wright are a couple, and so the shtick is, because he always has to have one, and it's actually kind of interesting, the camera never moves. It's literally, the camera is only, it's in their living room.
Interesting.
And it's their entire relationship over time. So, but apparently, and even the trailer, it starts at the beginning of time, like that moment on this planet, and it just like fast forwards through, and then the house gets built and that kind of stuff, and then they move in, and then it's their story of their family from them meeting, or however, like I think he's raised in that house or whatever, but then they grow old. So it's like,
that'll
it's
be
that
really
all
interesting
in
to
one,
see.
the camera does not move. It is only here, and the world around it, so check out the trailer. It looks interesting.
Will.
So at least he's trying new things. He does what's like, I like that about him.
Yep.
So I appreciate that. So I got to give Zemeckis, like, I mean, if nothing else, she has Back to the Future. So
true. And Castaway and good stuff.
I mean, Zemeckis is a great director. It's just he hasn't. So I'm hoping, they that goes well, but we'll see. So anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I'm going up there. I'm going to try it. I'm going to let the jury decide.
As we close out our spotlight segment, we come to our final takes called The Verdict.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
This is where Tim and I give our final verdicts after rewatching the film and decide whether or not the movie held up over the course of 2 decades.
Now you get out of here before I call a bailiff and have you thrown in jail.
This is The Verdict.
I said to hell with it, to hell with it.
An enjoyable trek through the tumultuous times in America between the 1950s and 1980s, told through the lens of a simple man caught up in those shifts. Forrest Gump is just a delightful and technically impressive film.
Are you recording? Can you start over?
Yep.
I wasn't.
Yep.
No, you don't have to start. I wasn't recording.
No, I'll record it. Yeah.
So start over.
An enjoyable trek through the tumultuous times in America between the 1950s and 1980s, told through the eyes of a simple man caught up in those shifts. Forrest Gump is just a delightful and technically impressive film that still holds up 3 decades later. Hank's performance is a standout amongst his amazing catalog, and Zemeckis' direction brings out all his best practical and digital work together. 4.5 out of 5 stars for me.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, my verdict, Forrest Gump remains to this day a truly wonderful film that not only holds up, it actually has found a way to get even better with age. Zemeckis and writer Roth give us a bit of a throwback film in the sense of it's an epic scope and story that takes place over the course of 30-some years of this person's life. Features top performances in particular, well, from everyone involved, but especially Gary Sinise and Tom Hanks, and had me crying still even after all these years. Looking back, is it the best picture from 1994? No, it's not. But it is still a great film and one that is a terrific flag bearer for an all-time great year of films. 4.5 out of 5. Just a lovely film as usual.
Yeah.
Love it.
The exciting quiz program, 21.
Our final segment of the episode is Quiz Show.
I have stood on the shoulders of life, and I've never gotten down into the dirt to build.
Where in our research for our subject film, we find some interesting trivia nuggets that we hope will stump the other and possibly intrigue you.
This is not McCarthyism. We're not here to expose for the sake of exposure.
This is Quiz Show.
Well, evidently certain of the contestants were given the answers in advance.
Cheating on a quiz show. It's like plagiarizing a comic strip.
I've got just one.
Me as well.
Okay. I think I had more, but since I forgot my notes at home, I had
we're covering
one.
3
but
movies.
Yeah, I was like, so I have one. Yeah. So I'll go first because you mentioned it, and it was on my list of Tom Hanks won 2 consecutive Oscars for acting for Philadelphia and Forrest Gump. Okay. He was, and I believe still is to this day, the 5th person to accomplish this feat. I'm not going to make you guess all 4. You've heard of 3 of these people, though, so to be fair. The previous 4 include Jason Robards for All the President's Men and the movie after that. I can't remember. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Louise Rainier, who was in a couple movies in the 30s. And the remaining 2 are one's a man, one's a woman. And what 2 actors who were in a relationship for 26 years starred in films together in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, but they were never married? What 2 all-time great actors won back-to-back acting Oscars?
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic trivia, and I'm just going to cop out. I literally have no idea from a, in relationship, the 2 of them.
Well, because they would have married, but his wife would not let him out of the marriage for a divorce.
The plot thickens, and I love it, but I truly have no idea.
Yeah, Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy both won back-to-back Oscars.
That makes complete sense. Okay, wow. What were the ones? He was married, and he's like, I don't want to be in the marriage anymore. I want to be with her. And
yeah, there was
no.
They were both, and she was married as well previously, and had gotten a divorce. She was able to get a divorce, but no, his wife would not let him out. So you wanted to know Spencer Tracy's one?
Who says women don't know or have any rights in this world, right? Just kidding.
Well, divorce, that's more like, it's probably more the divorce piece, right? Spencer Tracy, the 2 he won for.
You're like, I wasn't prepared for that.
No, it was, no, you're fine. Because he was not, the problem is he was nominated all the time, right?
Sure.
So he won Best Actor in 1939 for Boys Town. And in 1938, he won Best Actor for Captain's Courageous.
Huh.
So there you go.
I would not have got that.
No,
nice.
No, I thought about doing Robards with Magnolia because
that's true.
He went back to back, and we're talking about Magnolia or whatever. We're like, no, yeah. So that's mine.
So I've got one that's going to blow your socks off.
Oh, I'm not wearing any, but all right.
Robin Wright, who we talked about in this film, she had her big screen debut in 1987 fantasy film?
Oh, yeah. Princess Bride.
Speaking of Rob Reiner,
I was like, Labyrinth? Yeah. Like, no, wrong. Yeah. Princess Bride.
Yeah, Princess Bride. Nice.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our happy hour episode on Forrest Gump. Make sure to go back and listen to our recent episodes on your favorite streaming platforms Watch out for upcoming episodes on The Shawshank Redemption, Napoleon Dynamite, and Anchorman. We want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. Find us on the internet via the metaverse of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and head to 20years4beers.com for all things 20/4. And be on the lookout for some new content as well, all across those, including potentially a TikTok channel.
Ooh.
You know, where I just dance and, you know, do the latest trends.
We're so Brad.
Yep. This has been 20 Years 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thank you. And now that I'm talking about it, man, I should have done some more quiz show on that, but whatever.
You blew it!
We're so Brad. We're so Brad. We're so Brad.
Yay.
We're so Brad.